I'm Jack Kennedy, and they hit a lot harder in my opinion too.
What is up, everybody? My name is Keelan McNamara, and everyone's got a plan until they get hit with my views.
I am Hunter Boss. He just wanted to go to the distance by the looks of it, but he couldn't even do that.
And this is the MMA Island Podcast.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MMA Island Podcast. I am Jack Kennedy alongside Keelan McNamara and Hunter Boss. We have a very good episode lined up this Monday. It will be produced Tuesday when you will be seeing it. Some good fights to talk about. Gane versus Volkov, a very important heavyweight fight. A lot of implications off of that. We will be going over the implications of that as well. And we'll be topping it off with a Khabib Nurmagomedov quote about Conor versus Dustin 3, which is very interesting. Let's go ahead and get into it. Cyril Gane versus Alexander Volkov, a very important heavyweight main event. It was actually a very good performance by Gane in getting the 50-45 decision. Hunter, what are your thoughts on this main event?
This was a fantastic fight. You know, on the scorecards, it looks like Cyril Gane just dominated throughout the entire fight, but in those early rounds, it was very competitive. Like Volkov was throwing good shots. He had good footwork. Both fighters looked great. It's just Gane edged out Volkov each round. And I thought it was a fantastic fight. That's how you know it's a really good fight. I think Gane looked fantastic. You know, he was always either throwing first or hitting him last. You know, if Volkov went to go throw something, Gane would throw about 3 or 4 punches in a combination. And that's what you need to see out of these heavyweight fighters is combinations, not just those one punch that they look for. I feel like Volkov started looking for that in the later rounds, but Gane kept throwing those combinations, and that really led to the victory for him.
Yeah, I don't say this to be arrogant because that's certainly not where I'm going with this, but there's a reason I drafted Cyril Gane in our draft that we did a couple of months ago.
Here we go.
Yeah, okay. Let's hear it.
Hang on. I'm not saying it because of that, and I'm definitely not saying it to brag. I'm simply saying we all know raw gifted talent when we see it, and I see it and I believe it every time I see Cyril Gane, and he fully vindicated me on Saturday night because I backed him to pick Volkov, and you know it was understandably a little bit of a controversial call because Volkov's a beast. He still is and he still will be, don't get it twisted, but Cyril Gane looked so mature and so composed in there. He was in there, he was switching stances, he was throwing leg kicks. His jab was unbelievable. He almost, I swear to God, the first person who came into my mind when I saw Gane after 3 or 4 rounds, he looked like a heavyweight Anderson Silva.
Yeah.
With the way he was throwing his punches and his leg kicks and the way he was moving and switching stance all the time, constantly changing it up, constantly switching on Volkov. And he was just a nightmare puzzle that Volkov couldn't solve. And that's why I rate him so highly. I think he is a puzzle that so many heavyweights are going to have such difficulty solving. You know, he can jab from southpaw, he can jab from orthodox, he can lead with a hook, he can lead with a jab. We saw him try to take Volkov down, even though he didn't have much of a chance. He used it to level change and land some extra damage in the clinch. Cyril Gane is for real, and he proved that. I had it 50-45 as well. I thought he won every round. The first round, as Hunter said, was definitely very close. I actually think Volkov outlanded Gane on leg kicks, but even then, Gane was still dictating the pace. He was still pushing forward, still unloading that jab, bloodying up Volkov's face. And it is, you know, I'm sure we'll discuss it later on in the podcast, but it is on to bigger and better things for Cyril Gane.
Yeah, absolutely well said. I mean, I had my doubts for Cyril Gane following his fight with Jairzinho Rozenstruik, which that's dumb on me, by the way, because that fight, Jairzinho Rozenstruik, as we've seen, is one of the best heavyweights out there, even still today. But Cyril Gane is legit, and I think that this fight absolutely proved it, that he has taken that next step. And obviously, we'll get to the interim title fight being booked versus Derek Lewis in just a little bit, because that is a big piece of news. But that fight against Volkov just proves so much for me watching Cyril Gane perform. He looked sharp. He landed the more powerful strikes. He landed the more combinations, generally the more leg kicks, over such a technical guy and a guy who is surging in Volkov. The only reason I picked Volkov going into this is because of just how strong he was looking going into it. But Cyril Gane really shut him down the entire fight and was able to implement his stuff going into it. I do agree with Hunter, actually. I think it was a lot more competitive of a fight than it'll look like on the official scorecards, because on the scorecards, and I do agree with it, 50-45 across, but it wasn't like every single round was almost on the verge of being a 10-8. Volkov was in it. He was throwing a little bit in there, but Cyril Gahn was out there just performing and proving he is one of the most technical and just sound heavyweights out there today. And undefeated record, surging. I just love a great prospect when we see one, and Cyril Gahn is up there, and now he's getting a title shot, and it's great to see. He is seriously one of the best heavyweights out there, and I think it's not even arguable at this point. Beating Volkov, that was not the Volkov we've seen that was 2 years ago. That was a surging Volkov coming off of 2 knockouts, and Cyril Gahn beat him 50-45, and it's hard to argue against that. The only argument you would have against that is that Volkov won round 1, and that doesn't even mean he won the rest of the fight. That would still mean Gane won 4 out of the 5 rounds. So unbelievably impressive. I'm very happy for Cyril Gahn. He is so good. Anderson Silva, that is the perfect comparison for me. I think that is such a good comparison. And just we were talking about heavyweight main events. This main event was so important for the division, and he just showed up. He rose to the moment. That's his second main event now. Went both rounds, 5 rounds. His cardio is and the style of his fighting is such a good thing for him, and in this heavyweight division where a lot of the guys at the top might not be able to last that long. He can last that long. He's proven it 2 times in a row now. So yeah, great performance from him, and just like Kalen said, on to bigger and better things for Cyril Gane.
Yeah, no, I agree. I love the Anderson Silva shout for sure. Paul Felder mentioned it in the podcast, and I just couldn't agree more, because at that moment where Paul Felder mentioned it, he threw a question mark kick up the front and to a heavyweight's face. You don't see heavyweights doing that. That's awesome. It's so cool to see fresh, new ways of fighting when it comes to heavyweight, because it's so much untapped potential. And the way he was moving out there and the cardio and the pace he was setting, it looked like he was a middleweight. It was insane. And Gane just really has so much to go from here. I love the title shot he has coming his way. Derek Lewis is going to be a tough matchup for him, but I think Gane, he has the potential to do it if he can just keep that pressure like he did in this fight against Volkov. One fantastic thing that I think Cyril did in this fight was that he was able to frustrate Volkov to the point where Volkov didn't feel comfortable throwing his strikes. You saw Volkov hesitating every strike he would throw, and he would literally only throw those leg kicks and maybe some kicks up to the middle. He did not feel comfortable getting close to Cyril Gane, and that's kind of hard to say. You can't criticize Gane for not getting a knockout when Volkov kept his distance the entire fight and he was turtling up in those last 2 rounds. Cyril is so good at that, and I think he can have so much success in the heavyweight division if he can keep frustrating his opponents like he's been doing right now.
Yeah, one other quality that I think Cyril Gane has, and it's someone we've mentioned quite a lot, especially you, Hunter, and you, Jack. We've mentioned a lot about Stephen Wonderboy Thompson when he fights. By the time you get to the 4th or 5th round, you realize, crap, the fight's nearly over. How the hell's all that time gone by? Cyril Gane reminds me a lot of that, and I think that is such a potent weapon for heavyweights because, like you said, Hunter, and I completely agree with the phrasing you've just used, he frustrates and he forces you either to throw the shot or to curl up, because you have to do one or the other when you're fighting him. If you overextend, his kickboxing will knock you out. If you curl up, he'll outpoint you. And I think Cyril Gane brings so many different qualities and technical qualities to the heavyweight division that we have not seen since someone like Cain Velasquez. He brings the kickboxing, he brings the cardio, probably the best cardio of any heavyweight. His wrestling, but that's not what's important about Cyril Gane. He's tough, he's fast, he moves quick, he moves agile, like with agility. Like we said, that Anderson Silva question mark kick. Volkov was like this. He threw a question mark kick, managed to get around a guy who's 3 inches taller as guard and smacked his head open. Excellent visual representation from Hunter, ladies and gentlemen. But the point is, Cyril Gane has it all. I truly believe he could be the next big thing, and that's why I earmarked him. I think he's got so much untapped raw potential, and I think with another 1 or 2 fights, he could be the complete heavyweight.
I agree. That's such a great point by you. I would say Stephen Thompson, Max Holloway, Robert Whitaker is in that category. And very soon, if Cyril Gane keeps doing what he's doing, he could be the fourth member of that special category that keeps going to decisions. But it's just what happened. How did we get to the fourth round here? That is such a great point by you, Keelan. And I definitely think if he's not already there, I think there's those three guys, and then there's Cyril Gane right below that. One more fight like that, he's up there with him. If he does that to Derek Lewis, little segue here to our next segment. Cyril Gane versus Derek Lewis has been booked for the interim heavyweight title for UFC 265. What heavyweight matchups are we looking forward to? Obviously, whenever we came up with this topic, this fight hadn't been announced, but it got announced. And there's still a lot of stuff to come off of this. Stipe's in there. John Jones is in there. Obviously, Ngannou, what's happening with him? He's upset about it. Hunter, what do you make of the whole heavyweight division right now?
It's a mess, but it's a beautiful mess. This is the type of mess where you're like, I want everyone to get a title shot. But that can't happen. You need to have only one person. And that one person I think who should get the title shot here is Derek Lewis. I think their first fight was definitely not anything beautiful. And we talk about the worst fights in the UFC. That's one of them. It's frustrating. It's annoying to watch. That's not going to happen in the second fight. Both of them are so much different. They're so powerful in each strike they throw. It's going to be an entertaining fight either way. Now, when you come and think about John Jones here, I think John Jones cuts the line for everyone. As much as we hate on him on this channel, he is one of the greatest fighters of all time. And I think he should get a hall pass here. He should be able to cut the line. So for real, what I really think John Jones versus Ngannou should be number one. And then I think Derek Lewis versus either I think Jairzinho Rosenstruck, even though I don't know. It's tough where I want to put Derek Lewis here. I'm going to skip Lewis for now. I'm going to go back to Stipe. I think Stipe versus Cyril Gane would be a fantastic fight to watch. I think they're both such great MMA artists. They're not just striking. They're not just wrestling. They're MMA fighters here. And the way we could watch them mix up and the way we can see if Stipe can really hold his pace against Cyril at this point would be amazing to watch, in my opinion. And Derek Lewis, give him the winner of either of those fights. I think Derek Lewis is hard to fit in here. I don't think he should get anyone lower than number 5. So, yeah, we're just going to let him float around.
Yeah, I agree with everything Hunter's just said. Heavyweight is a bloody mess right now. And frankly, I actually blame John Jones for a lot of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I love John Jones. I've defended him quite a lot in this channel. I've pounded him where he's deserved to be, but I've defended his natural ability. He's caused a real pileup at heavyweight. Because, all right, heavyweight's been a bit of a mess for a year or two now, but we were starting to get things moving again. And Ngannou wins the title, then he starts defending whatever. And then Jones comes in, makes it all about money and stalls everything again. Quite frankly, I don't think Jones should be cutting past anybody. Whilst I understand why Hunter says it, I have to disagree with him there. I don't think he's conducted himself in any way that warrants cutting it. I think he hasn't won a convincing fight in about 4 or 5 years. And frankly, I just don't think he's conducted himself in any way good enough to warrant a shot at being the baddest man on the planet. I really don't. Quite frankly, if I was looking at booking John Jones, I'd give him someone like Cyril Gane. Although I do think Cyril Gane's worthy of the title shot, I think Jones needs to work his way up at heavyweight. I think letting him skip the queue just because he's John Jones, it kind of dampens everything that all the other guys have been working for. Now, that feeds into the issue with the top 5 and who you pair with who. The problem is at heavyweight, we're starting to develop a real carousel here where all the guys have fought each other already. So to pair them up again, there's no meaning to it. It doesn't clear anything. This is one of those situations where we've all agreed we need a Grand Prix style tournament like Pride.
Yes.
Just get everybody together, match up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just let them have at it. Because the rankings have become stagnated now. You have someone like Alexander Volkov who might beat Rosenstruck and Blades, but then Gane will beat Volkov. You have this kind of thing where everybody keeps beating each other and no clarity's coming out of it. So in many ways, feeding into the main topic of Lewis and Gane, I think that it does make sense in that it provides at least some clarity at the very upper echelon of the heavyweight division. Would I throw a title into it? that's a different debate and a very interesting one, but it's definitely an unbelievable fight to make. Stylistically, it's fantastic. I think you have a much better Jairzinho Rosenstruik against Cyril Gahn and Derek Lewis, and I think that adds a whole different dynamic to their fight. So at the moment, that's my 2 cents in the heavyweight division.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. We've talked about the heavyweight division so much recently, and it's for good reason. It's just getting more and more insane by the day. Keelan, I think you absolutely nailed it. It's becoming everybody's starting to fight each other. It's becoming that point where all of this talent is getting roadblocked because they faced it and it's not really clear who's going to go against who. That being said, I do disagree with your point, though. Just because of the pure fan standpoint, I would love to see John Jones go up there and get that title shot. And this is weird because I don't think I've ever said anything really positive about John Jones on this channel so far, which, you have to give him his respect. There's a reason why he is in the GOAT conversation for so many people. And he is absolutely one of the greatest fighters to ever do it. And for that reason and name recognition, the Ngannou versus John Jones fight is something that we all want to see. It would be one of the biggest blockbuster fights in the UFC's history for the top belt in the organization as well. I really want to see that fight so badly. This is less logical and more just from a pure fan standpoint, as a pure technical matchup, knowing what John Jones can do. The only loss he has is a disqualification to the elbow, and then we have the multiple question decision wins, but those all went to wins for him. So realistically, he's never really lost a fight in the UFC. Going against Ngannou, who you don't even need to describe how much of a threat he is to the heavyweight division. So I really want to see that fight so badly. So personally, that's who I would go. But realistically, that's not going to happen with the whole contract situation and everything like that. So for me personally, I'm taking John Jones out of the equation right now because we don't know what's going on with him. It's just like, I think you absolutely nailed it. He is one of the main problems with the heavyweight division and why it's kind of just a complete disaster right now, because where does John Jones fit in all this? So I'm thinking Derek Lewis and Ngannou is the heavyweight title fight to make. And that's been talked about a lot. Ngannou, let me start with this. Lewis versus Gain. I know. Hunt or Keelan, you said you weren't going to try and start a whole argument with this. I don't think a belt should be on the line for that. Ngannou won the belt 3 months ago. Yes, there's a bunch of stuff, but a lot of this isn't on Ngannou's fault, in my opinion. He's waiting for the whole what's going to happen. Am I going to face John Jones? Are they going to figure out this contract situation, or is Derek Lewis up next for me? And that contract, what's happening? Then they booked this Lewis versus Cyril Gahn, and it's for the interim belt. And Ngannou's like, I just won the belt 3 months ago. When have we ever seen this before without like a significant injury? He won the belt 3 months ago. Nothing's happened. Think about how long the Stipe versus DC, the third fight, was to be booked. Almost a whole year. That entire division was just forming itself. Nothing was going on until they could fight again. So give Ngannou a little bit of a break. In my opinion, it's still, I honestly think that's the fight to make, though. I think in that situation with everything that's going on, I think Cyril Gahn versus Derek Lewis that's a solid fight to make. Volkov, I can't even get into that because who even knows where he fits in at this point with everything that goes on. Maybe he faces the winner versus Rosenstruck versus Blades. But then again, you face the problem that Keelan said. If Blades wins that, then you have Volkov Blades too. And we saw how that first fight went. So who knows? And who wants to see that again, the way that whole thing played out? And yeah, they're different fighters, whatever. I see it going the same way. It's a whole mess right now. The only two fights I kind of am sure about that I would want to see would be Ngannou versus Lewis. Oh, here's the other thing I was thinking. I'm sorry. My mind's going crazy. I wanted to see, and Hunter, you said it, I want to see Cyril Gahn versus Stipe Miocic. So what my ideal situation would have been, and what isn't going to happen now, would have been Ngannou versus Lewis, and then you have Stipe versus Cyril Gahn, because how amazing of a matchup would that Stipe fight be, with the way they're both technical, their fight IQs going at it, and then we would see really Cyril Gahn be tested like he's never been tested, like very few heavyweights, facing the GOAT at heavyweight. Can he handle the takedowns? Can he handle the volume? Can he handle the power of Stipe Miocic, the pace that Miocic faces? Then Stipe, how does he rebound from being knocked out to Ngannou? Does he come back even better like he did against DC? In that case, where the entire heavyweight division is on notice. But yeah, that's kind of what I want to see. But as far as Stipe not knowing what's going on, being kind of left out of the equation, which is not fair to him. But as far as him being left out of the equation, John Jones, who knows what's going on, I think the UFC did an okay job of handling the heavyweight situation. I think the matchup between Derek Lewis versus Cyril Gaines okay, but the belt on the line for me, I'm not a huge fan of it.
Yeah, they didn't need to put a belt on the line. They could have just said the winner will get the title shot here. I mean, like I think it's pretty obvious that the winner should get it as it is.
Yeah.
The only other situation I can see is either John Jones or Stipe, which are two big logical situations. I'll tell you one they're not going to do. They're not going to do Stipe. They're not going to give it to Stipe, even though he 100% deserves it. The heavyweight division, everyone deserves it. So they're not going to give it to Stipe, even though he's the GOAT. And John Jones, they already don't like John Jones as it is, so they can make him wait for a little bit. They don't want to give him the money he so desperately wants, so they're going to make him wait. It's all going to happen. Jack, I agree with 100% of all your points. The reason John Jones versus Ngannou would be so good, and you said it was illogical. It's not illogical. UFC's a company. To sell fights, you need big names. So I agree in this fact that John Jones should cut the line. I know Keelan doesn't agree, but that's okay. We can have differing opinions. But I just think John Jones sells fights so well, and especially if it's for the baddest man on the planet, it would be a fantastic draw-in. It would be fantastic pay-per-view. This could be up there with some of those McGregor pay-per-view cards. This would be amazing. This is what the fans have been dying for here. They didn't even know they wanted this until John Jones announced it, how funny it is. But, the heavyweight division, like we've said before and 100 times over, it's a mess. But it's all going to work out here soon. Within a year, it's all going to be fixed, which is good to hear. You come and think about it. We have these shots lined up. We have matchups happening here, but we don't want ghost matchups happening again. These fights have just been going around and around and around. We need to start throwing in these higher ranked fighters, these number 8s and number 7s, and just giving them the shot at beating a number 4 or number 3. It may not happen, but it's good to mix it up every now and then. Don't just have them fighting the same people over and over again. This is a good way to fix it. This is a good way to mix it up, and it's a good way to get contenders out there, kind of like Gone. But to end it off here, Stipe Gone, I think, would be one of the greatest matchups to see, especially at heavyweight. It would be one of my favorite matchups just to see in general.
I agree.
Lewis and Ngannou, of course, beautiful. Two of the hardest hitting heavyweights currently. I'd say they're the two heaviest hitters. And I feel like the only person who could beat Ngannou right now is Lewis, because the only way to finish Ngannou is to knock him out. No one's even wobbled him, let's be real here. And the only person who can wobble him, I think, would be Lewis. So I think just for a chance for the heavyweight division to be spicy, we need Lewis to fight Ngannou.
Swanging and banging incorporated, ladies and gentlemen. Let's have it. Yeah, I really wish I could share Hunter's optimism, because I bloody hope it's sorted out within a year. The division's awful. It's stagnated like a madness. The problem we have with the heavyweight division, I mentioned it a minute ago, but I'll just reiterate just to make my point clear. We have two confluencing car crashes that have met each other. We have the fact that the heavyweight division is becoming a carousel with all the same guys at top 10 fighting each other. And then we have John Jones offering a glimmer of hope to clear this whole thing, and then it's stalling. Quite frankly, this whole mess could have been sorted from the beginning, and I do lay some of the blame at Dana White's feet. John Jones should never have been confirmed as moving up to heavyweight until something was signed, because he left it open. He left it open for Jones to throw a spanner in the works again and to stall everything. He should never have been confirmed as moving up until he said, right, I have a contract signed with Francis Ngannou, Stipe Miocic, whoever the hell it is. I don't really care at this point. He should have said, I have a signed contract here to fight on this date with X for X amount of money. Let's go. The fact that this didn't happen caused an even worse situation than the one we had before. And again, I do think that feeds into my argument for not having Jones fight for the title straight away, although I think Hunter makes a very good argument for having him, because at the end of the day, it's a business. And with business, you want the biggest names fighting, and they don't come much bigger than John Jones. I'm never going to argue otherwise. But Stipe Cyril Gane would be a pure IQ fight, and that's why I'd want to see it. I think that's an amazing shout from both of you guys, and I actually agree with that. And Derek Lewis and Ngannou is really, really interesting, because I think Derek Lewis is just that one guy who somehow can summon the power to get the 1 in a million shot and knock Francis Ngannou on his ass. Now, I don't think I could see anybody else doing that, but
Yeah.
somehow I just think Derek Lewis could because he just is that guy. And what I will say as well is because obviously the rumor that's been going around for the last 6 months now about Jones and Ngannou, that fight would sell well because there's so many unknowns going into that fight because we've never seen John Jones at heavyweight. And this is an argument for why I would have Jones fight at heavyweight once before throwing him into the title fight. We don't know what we're dealing with. Moving up a division can completely change a fighter. We don't know if Jones is going to be slower, if he's going to be even easier to hit. We don't know if his leg kicks are going to carry more power. We have no idea what he's going to look like. And quite frankly, I think if you throw him in at the deep end against Ngannou, I think Ngannou could knock him out. Because as fantastic of a fighter as John Jones is, his one weakness in his armor has always been the most basic weakness you can have. He gets hit easily. His boxing defense is very, very poor. And can you imagine what Francis Ngannou would do if he landed on Jones? I mean, we've seen Jones troubled once or twice before. Thiago Santos was landing on him. Dominic Reyes had him backing up. And Ngannou will put him through the fence if he hits him clean. So I think there's a lot of narratives to consider. And I really think the UFC needs to get their act together, put their foot down and say, right, this is what we're doing. Quite frankly, I'm putting John Jones to one side for the moment because he's causing more pileup than he's fixing. What I would do is I actually think they're kind of on the right lines now. I'd focus on who's actually at heavyweight and who's willing to fight. Listening, John, willing to fight. I'd focus on them. As for the title, I can sort of see why they'd throw it in, but then I can also see why not. I think it creates more confusion again, but at least those are the two that are fighting. I think that's the main positive to take out of this, basically. We finally have some traction. Hopefully this all gets cleared up soon, and I'm trying to stay in a positive frame of mind.
Yeah, I really like it. I am so glad you brought up the Ngannou versus John Jones point. It is a little bit of a side topic, but I've always been prepared for whenever that fight would be booked, which it's probably not going to get booked now, which I'm upset about. But I was going to predict Ngannou by a knockout, and I was going to stand behind that. That has been my prediction. That's what I've been feeling about that fight, just because of what we've seen. And I don't like to make anything out of the training videos because that's not what you see out of the fighter on fight day and everything, and that's what they do. So I'm not even paying attention to that. But just the way John Jones is bulking up, his body does not match his head and stuff like that. He does not look like a natural heavyweight. Some people are not made to move up. I'd argue Israel Adesanya is not made to move up. Even if he puts on that weight, his body type is not made for 205. He's made for 185. Same deal with John Jones. His legs are not big. His calves are very skinny. It's just small things like that. And Ngannou being able to step in, if he lands a shot like Thiago Santos was able to land, which, by the way, Thiago Santos, a former middleweight, was able to land on John Jones clean, I think he would go down. And also, Ngannou just is a truck of a human being. And would John Jones' power carry over? And would he have the same impact on Ngannou? Would he be able to get out of the way of Ngannou for 25 minutes? Because all it takes is one. At one point in the fight, all it takes is one. That's a different conversation for a different day. I don't know. I just, because Keelan brought it up, I thought it was fascinating. The thing that I just kind of want to end it off on is imagine the heavyweight division if John Jones did what Keelan said and just kind of waited for the contract to actually figure itself out or didn't even get involved at all. We would probably not even have that much controversy at all right now. Everything, and that goes way back because he was waiting for the winner of Stipe versus Ngannou. But I guarantee you those fights would have been booked back to back very quickly. Derek Lewis would have been next in line very clearly for me. I think things would have been getting going and everything. And then you figure out Gane, and I think Gane Stipe or potentially, or who knows what would have happened at that point. But it is just the whole division is a mess. And I think at the root of it, the first domino to fall was John Jones in that whole thing. And that impacts everybody else because it holds up the top, which creates chaos throughout the rest of the division. We see that with bantamweight, with lightweight, used to it featherweight, just a whole bunch of divisions. And now we're seeing it at heavyweight, which is just so fascinating. But hey, I love it. We're going to see some great fights, some great fighters up there. And speaking of another great fight and great fight card. UFC 264 is just less than 2 weeks away, I think. I'm already very excited for that. I was about to say Dustin McGregor. Dustin Poirier versus Conor McGregor 3 is about to go down. And Khabib Nurmagomedov actually weighed in on this. And let me read the exact quote that he said so I don't get it wrong. He said, "The first round is for Conor. If he can take it, he wins. If he doesn't, Dustin wins." It's a very fascinating quote. And Hunter, I know you have a lot to say about this. What do you make of this quote from Khabib Nurmagomedov?
Man, I think Khabib watches our podcast every now and then, guys, because I said this exact same thing last time this fight happened. Back, I think almost a while ago, a few months ago for surely. I was thinking to myself, Conor McGregor, if he can knock out DP in the first round, obviously he wins. But I think if he goes past into the second, third, fourth, fifth rounds, I think Dustin Poirier is smart enough to find the chinks in the armor to be able to expose Conor McGregor's weaknesses and be able to knock out or even just take him to a decision. I think Conor McGregor, how the way we've seen in the past fights before, he can tire pretty easily. In the Nate Diaz fights, he tired very easily in the first one. The second one, he had a good cardio in it. I will give it to him. But against a fighter like Dustin Poirier, I think it's going to be hard to just keep going forward, especially with those leg kicks. Those leg kicks are going to be detrimental to Conor McGregor here. There's not a lot of me seeing Conor McGregor winning this fight. I think Conor McGregor has every single tool in his arsenal that can do it, but Dustin Poirier is just simply too big of a wall to climb over. I think Dustin Poirier has the power, he has the wrestling, he has the guillotine that hasn't landed yet. This could be the final one where it does. You never know when it comes to Dustin Poirier. So I think it's going to be a great fight all in all, but that Khabib quote, I feel like is spot on. He knows what he's talking about. He was the lightweight champion for a while.
First of all, shout out Khabib for watching the podcast. Love that,
He's
man.
an avid
Shout
listener.
out
That's what's
Dagestan.
going on, yeah.
Inshallah. Love that. And no, I think Khabib is absolutely nail on here. And by extension, naturally, Hunter's nail on here because Khabib obviously saw what Hunter said.
Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, it's a thing. This is true, guys. Your
That's how his
wrestling is
predictions
zero.
are so good. He's listening to what Hunter's saying. I mean,
Oh,
Your
that's what
wrestling
it
is
is.
zero.
Yeah.
Your ground game is zero, gentlemen. You already know this. No, Khabib's absolutely right. And again, nobody knows what they're talking about more than Khabib Nurmagomedov. He's faced both of them, and he's faced both of them in that style. Yeah, Conor McGregor is what Conor McGregor is, and Conor McGregor is what Conor McGregor will always be. He's a 2-round fighter.
Mm-hmm.
Rounds 1 and 2, he's 10 out of 10. Anything beyond that, he starts to fade. And that's not a knock on Conor McGregor. Some fighters and some athletes are built for explosiveness. Some are built for stamina. Usain Bolt could not run a marathon. Mo Farah probably couldn't run the 100 meters. Some fighters are just built differently than others. And Dustin Poirier is a stamina machine, and he is tough. He keeps level from round 1 to round 5. Like, if you consider these two fighters in a graph, for example, just see what I did there. Dustin Poirier is like this, completely level 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Conor starts way up here, goes across, and crashes down. Now, he gets a little bit of a second wind around the beginning of the 4th round, but that's not going to be enough. And I think Khabib has this nailed on. I think Dustin's going to win, and I said this before, and I will say it again. Dustin is now 1 step ahead of McGregor because he destroyed his legs and knocked him out. Now he's 2 steps ahead because Conor has to figure out what the hell Dustin's planning next, and he has no idea. And the thing is, I saw Conor put out a tweet a couple of weeks ago. I think it said first one to shoot for a takedown's a dusty bitch, something like that. So Conor, I don't think Conor's trying to get into Dustin's head. I certainly don't think he's going to be successful. I think he's rattled already. And I think he knows Dustin Poirier can take this fight anywhere that he wants to. And Conor cannot afford to let those legs get kicked again because he will be hobbling halfway through the first round. He's got to go back into that karate style. You guys said that the last time we talked about this, and I fully agree with you. If his legs are hittable, Dustin Poirier is going to take him out by the end of the first round. Now, the problem with that is it leaves him again more susceptible to the takedown, because if he's protecting his legs, he's going to be worried about the takedown. If he's worried about the takedown, his head's exposed like Khabib with the overhand. So realistically, Dustin holds a lot of aces going into this fight. He's supremely confident, rightly so, because he can finish Conor anywhere. I have no doubt that his jiu-jitsu and his ground game is levels beyond anything McGregor has. And quite frankly, I think in 2021, his stand-up is better than McGregor's too. Now, if you were to ask me this 6 years ago, my answer would have been completely different. But if you look at both guys now, one has evolved beyond anything even the most optimistic of us thought he could, whereas one of them, quite frankly, has gone all the way down. So the way I see it at the moment, this is Dustin Poirier's fight to lose. And just to end off my initial segment, I think Khabib's 100% correct.
Yeah, I agree with you spot on. My biggest thing is that in this fight, we're going to be seeing a lot of different stuff from both Conor and Dustin Poirier. As far as Dustin Poirier goes, I mean, he gets to keep up the same stuff, but we know, I think, Keelan, you nailed it 100%. I think Khabib is right with this quote. Khabib has fought both of them, and Conor explodes in the first round especially, but I think I give him 2 rounds. I give Conor 2 rounds to go all out. I give him 2 rounds to go all out, and then the rest I see Dustin going. I'm not going to say my prediction for this fight because we'll save that for a later date for everybody out there. But what I am generally thinking is that Conor, if he doesn't get it, just exactly what Khabib said, I think he hit it exactly right there. It's almost a fairly obvious statement, like Keelan pointed out, the way they're built. But this fight has potential to go a lot like I think the Dan Hooker Dustin Poirier fight went, and where the first 2 rounds Dan Hooker's going all out and Dustin Poirier weathers the storm, and what does he do? He explodes back. And my early prediction here, I've been thinking a lot because we have always mentioning, okay, what's next? Conor's going to be ready for the leg kicks. Well, okay, theoretically, Conor should be ready for the leg kicks. That's all everybody's talking about is him checking the calf kicks. I think that Conor McGregor will be eating a lot of body shots from Dustin Poirier in the third fight. I think that's going to be the new transition for Dustin Poirier now. I think he's going to be focusing on working the body instead of just the head and everything, and especially as it goes later on, if he does go later on, that's going to add up to a toll, and Conor's going to be starting to headhunt and stuff like that. Just a general thing about what Dustin's thinking is what I kind of am assuming he's going to be going for. But yeah, as far as the quote, yeah, I think Khabib is spot on. I think, and it's almost a fairly obvious statement because of the way they're built. But you know it, especially him having faced them. He knows Dustin Poirier is built to go full 5 rounds, not gas out, keep pouring it on, actually further as it goes on. Conor McGregor is built for early rounds, and he is one of the most dangerous fighters ever in the early rounds. You have to be so careful then. But as it goes later, he starts to fade. So it's going to be awesome. I think we all agree with the quote from Khabib. Hunter, do you have any final thoughts?
I'd tweak the quote. I'll say first 2 rounds.
First 2 rounds, yeah.
Yeah. I think that's pretty fair to say. But that's about it, Yeah.
Yeah, Khabib, get it right, would you? Come on. Come on, we're trying to do a thing here and you're ruining it. No, I think that's pretty fair, actually. McGregor is the 2-round animal. He always has been. So I think, Hunter, you're absolutely right to say that. But again, I just really think this is Dustin's fight to lose. Unless we see the return of evil McGregor, like Mendes Aldo McGregor, even you could kind of argue Alvarez McGregor, I think Dustin's going to win this. I think psychologically Dustin's bulletproof. And I just think he has so many advantages coming into this fight. Psychologically, he has the advantage. Physically, he has the advantage. Emotionally, he has the advantage. Because Conor McGregor has to try and play anticipatory now. Usually Conor's always on the front foot in preparation for a fight. Now he's firmly on the back foot, and he's going to have to come out fighting defensive until he figures out what Dustin's trying to do. Whereas Dustin realistically can try and put together any game plan that he wants, because Conor's not going to know what he's facing until he's in there. in the second fight, Connor had a good idea of what he was facing because he faced a similar Dustin the first time. He could be facing a wrestling Dustin Poirier this time.
Yeah.
And I just don't see him having an answer to it. So again, I agree with Khabib's statement. I would amend it, as Jack and Hunter said, for the first 2 rounds, not just the first round. But if the leg kicks are there and if the wrestling's there, Dustin Poirier will win once again.
Yeah, Habib, get it right. 2 rounds. Come on, man. Yeah, no. But hey, it's okay. He'll fix the quote because he's an avid listener of the podcast. So pretty soon he'll after this comes out on Wednesday, he'll fix the quote and say, "Oh yes, 2 rounds, of course. My bad."
Send me location, Khabib.
The
Come
MMA
on.
Island podcast, they nailed it, of course. So yes, all right, guys. Great podcast. Thank you, everyone, so much for listening. Please make sure to like and subscribe, as always, on YouTube. Listen to us everywhere, literally everywhere, including iTunes and Spotify. Please make sure to follow us on Instagram at mma.island and check out all of our great work on our website, mmaisland.net. We have some fantastic stuff going on there. Lots of new journalists. Again, thank you, everyone, so much for listening. Great podcast, guys.
Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you, guys.